I have been dying to talk about this show ever since it ended a few weeks ago. And that show is Pitbabe. For those of you who are unaware, Pitbabe is basically a BL about a race car driver and like a super fan and everything that ends up happening there with them. Genuinely one of my favorite BLs I've watched this year. Disregarding one that I haven't mentioned yet on the channel. So who are our main characters? We have Babe, Charlie, Way, Alan, Jeff, and then we have our side characters, which are Pete, Kenta, North, Sonic, Dean, Winner, Kim, and then the man himself, Tony. The main roles are played by Powell and Pooh. A little fun fact that I found out about the show is that it's one of the main BLs that I've come across that have an all-male cast, which is pretty cool. There's a part about the show that I'm leaving out, and it's the fact that it's based on Omegaverse. I don't really feel like explaining the Omegaverse to you guys. If you know, you know. But since finishing the show, I've had a lot of thoughts. A bit of a gist of the story or just the plot. Like I said, it's about a fan and a race car driver who are slowly starting to fall in love with each other, but they run into some problems with the main villain of the story, whose name is Tony. If you don't want any spoilers, then maybe skip out on this, because I really can't talk about the show without spoiling something. So who the main villain is, like I said, his name is Tony. He's like, I don't want to call it like an orphanage, but like, honestly, it's kind of like a prison, where he raises these kids, these boys, up to become like super alphas, so he can eventually sell them for money. Now, Babe, who is our main character, or one of our main characters, he is a very interesting character to me. Going on this journey with Babe and observing how he interacts with the other characters really helps you understand his character more. So, back to the plot. Babe and Charlie, right? I don't know if I said his name right, but Charlie. Charlie basically wants to go through with this plan that him and his adopted brother, who is Jeff, basically hone down on what Tony's plan is, right? Because Babe is actually one of Tony's sons, quote unquote. He's one of Tony's sons, right? Who actually ended up escaping the prison. One of many, right? And ever since then, Tony has been trying to get Babe back, because Babe is like his most prized son, his son who grew up to become like probably like the best version of his alpha sons that he was trying to create, right? And we don't learn this until like the very end of the of the show, but Charlie is actually also one of Tony's sons, right? Who also escaped. But yeah, so like throughout the show, we're trying to uncover the secrets. We're trying to, watch Charlie and Babe as they're getting, used to each other, understanding each other. And we're just watching all the drama unfold, right? Now, my main thing that I'm obsessed with about this show is actually understanding the characters. And one of those characters that I really enjoyed diving into was Wei. Now, a little backstory on Wei. Wei is actually Babe's best friend of I think they said in the show it's been 10, 12 years since they've been friends. And they met each other at the garage that they all work at, right? Now, the problem here is that Wei has this secret, honestly, it's not even just a secret crush at this point. He has a secret love for Babe. And the other problem is that Babe does not share the same feelings. And as we're watching the story unfold, you slowly start seeing Wei get more and more and more jealous of Charlie, because Babe and Charlie have just met each other, and suddenly Babe is so close to Charlie. They're closer than him and Wei are, and I'm gonna be honest, that would make anybody jealous. But one thing about Wei is that he is also a son of Tony, and he is actually an enigma, which I know I said I wasn't going to go into the Omegaverse thing, but there's other names for it. But enigmas do exist in the Megaverse, but it's not very common. In Pitbabe, the enigma is able to carry a child. So there's actually let me just back up for a second. We unveil what Wei's actual feelings are, and how he actually feels during the scene that Babe and Charlie announce that they're officially a couple. Wei actually ends up walking away, and Babe follows him, and they end up having this it wasn't really an argument, but just a back and forth where both parties are clearly upset. And Wei basically explains that you have literally never cared about how I feel. You've only ever cared about expressing your feelings to me and using me as this shoulder to care, the shoulder to cry on, right? And the first time that I actually saw this scene, I was extremely annoyed, because I was he has some nerve, considering what happens a few episodes after this, but he has some nerves acting like this, and then being upset that Babe doesn't feel the same. And I was like, bro, you're a grown fucking man. You're a grown man. If somebody that you're showing interest in doesn't show the same amount of interest, or doesn't show any interest at all, why are you continuously trying to go for this person? He clearly doesn't want you. He clearly only sees you as someone who, he's been friends with for over a decade. Why are you still having feelings for him like this? And it wasn't until I went back, I took a second, I analyzed his character, and I was okay, I get it now. So after him and Babe have that little discussion where they're like going through it, right? Way actually storms away, and we get this very sad montage of Way realizing that Babe is the one that actually got away. And honestly, before what happens in a few episodes after that, it is really heartbreaking to watch, because like I said, he sees Babe as the one that got away. He has had these deep feelings for Way for years now, and he's had to suppress them, because my theory is that he didn't want to ruin him and Babe's relationship as friends. Because think about like having feelings for your friend, and then you're starting like, oh hey, I have feelings for you, and how awkward that would make everything be after that. That's horrible, right? And I really was like feeling for him. Now, this sentiment, this like idea of me sympathizing for him really went down the drain during, I believe it was episode 9, right? And my reaction to what happens in episode 9 were probably one of the most genuine reactions I've ever had. And I say this because what ends up happening is Babe ends up going to see Way after he finds out that Tony, his foster father, is on to something, right? And he goes to Way to be like, hey, this is what's going down with Tony, right? But as he's in Way's house, he gets a call from Charlie. And Charlie tells him that the guy that Tony is in cahoots with is Way. You can see, like, I'm going to post just like his realization of what's going on. And he looks over at Way and freezes. Now, one thing about the Omegas and the Alphas and everything in this show is that they have powers. They all have like different powers depending, on what their specialty was when they were getting trained in Tony's little camp. Way's power is, the best way I can describe it is he's able to take over somebody's body. So like if he touches your shoulder and tells you to go to sleep, you'll instantly go to sleep. If he touches you and tells you to forget about all your pain, you'll literally forget about all your pain. So he has the ability to take control and manipulate people's emotions, their body, all that, right? So as Babe looks over at Way, Way walks over to Babe and places his hand on his shoulder and tells him to freeze. And the scene that instills afterwards, I'm not really going to explain what happens because it's horrific. And you can kind of read in between the lines, right? I mean, come on. Way tells Babe that the reason why he's doing what he's doing now is because he wants to protect Babe. And he wants to get Tony, their surrogate, like, foster father, off their back. And Way's plan was to have a baby with Babe to continue the legacy of the super alpha babies, right? And it is really hard to watch, and I mean really hard to watch. And thank God Charlie comes in to save him, right? And it ends up in like a tussle where Charlie gets frozen and then Babe wakes up and he punches the shit out of Way. And Babe basically explains that, well, Way's like, hey, I'm just doing this because I love you. I'm doing this because I want to protect you. And just the reaction from Babe was so genuine. He just like, love? If you really loved and care about me, you wouldn't do what you did, right? And thankfully, him and Charlie are able to escape, right? And then the scene after that is so sad. It's so sad because he's tearing up Way's pictures and he's sobbing. And Charlie comes in, he tries to calm him down. And the pain that oozes out of Babe's face, out of his mouth, he goes, why does everyone in my life, everyone I have ever trusted, why do they always betray me? Why do they always hurt me? It's so freaking sad. And that actually is a perfect caveat into me talking about Babe. So if you can't tell from me describing Babe, he is a crybaby. He is. He has a very fragile ego, where like when things happen, he gets really defensive. Under all the glitz and glamour of him being like this 5-star racer, this really great guy, right? You can tell that he's just someone who's yearning for genuine love, right? Talking about Babe, when he was growing up with Tony in the camp, in the prison, he had no father figure. The only father figure, air quotes, that he had was Tony. And obviously, who the fuck would want Tony as a father? But what do I know? We actually get a bit of backstory about Babe's father. Basically, we learned this in, like, I believe it was the final episode. Babe's father gave him up for adoption to Tony because Babe and his father are homeless. And Babe's father's idea was he didn't want his son to, like, constantly live this life of being homeless. He actually wanted his son to live a life, but he didn't realize that he fucked up until he read the fine print. Babe really just wanted his father in his life, because that entire time with Tony, Babe thought he had nobody. He thought that his dad died, right? Because I believe that's what Tony told him, is that his dad was dead. He has a very, very broken inner child, right? And we get to see how broken this inner child is in that scene where he actually meets up with his father, right? So there's this scene in the final episode where Babe and his father, they have this interaction, right? You know, his father is explaining, hey, you know, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And Babe is like, do you have any idea how lonely I felt during those years of being with that horrible, horrible man? Do you have any idea? I thought that you were dead. I thought that I was alone. And you're telling me that you gave me up for adoption? I literally, in that scene, you can just tell he's broken, bro. And you can just feel and sense the struggle that he's dealing with inward. And honestly, I really relate to him with that when it comes to not being understood by, you know, those close to you. It's such a beautiful thing because when he found Charlie, right, and he started to get to know Charlie and try to understand Charlie and, you know, become, you know, Charlie's partner, you can tell that he was like, finally somebody who I can trust. Now, this is when I talk about Charlie. I didn't write down a character analysis of Charlie because I really just wanted to talk about some things that were interesting about Charlie. For starters, why is he such a liar? And I know you're just like, okay, it's not that he's a liar. He's just, you know, was trying to protect Babe. Right. In my opinion, I feel like some of the things that Charlie was lying about, a lot of y'all would have flipped the fuck out about. For example, remember how I told you at the beginning that Charlie and Jeff, who is his adopted brother, who was also a part of Tony's little crew of people, right? Well, Tony's like sons. Their plan was for Charlie to fake his death, And the reason for this was because Charlie was actually having a conversation with Babe and saying, hey, if I die, you would get full access to your senses back. So Babe's senses are basically, he's able to experience, he just has heightened senses, so like heightened smell, heightened feeling, heightened sight, heightened hearing, all that, right? And the problem with Charlie is that he has the inverse sense. So he's able to take people's senses away the closer he gets to them. So as you can tell, with him getting closer to Babe, he realized, oh shit, I'm taking this motherfucker's senses away. And he was like, okay, we need to come up with a plan to make it so Babe gets his senses back. And somehow they come with the conclusion to fake Charlie's death. And the way this happens is Charlie is actually racing in the same race with Babe. Charlie's truck flips over. The next 15, 20 minutes are basically probably the most heartbreaking set of scenes in the entire fucking show. And I just want to say, Powell, you devoured that shit. Like, oh my God, just his reaction to seeing Charlie's lifeless body, his reaction to being in the hospital as they're wheeling the love of his life into the emergency room, his reactions to feeling his senses come back to him. Because like I just said, Charlie said the only way for Babe to get his senses back is if Charlie dies. That's the only way he can get his senses back, unless there's another way, which there is. But at that point, that's all Babe knew, is that I'm getting my senses back in this moment, so that means that the love of my life is dying. So he's experiencing these heightened emotions. He's experiencing heightened sense, smell, hearing, and it's overwhelming because at this point, he had lost his senses completely. And suddenly, as the love of his life is dying, he's getting this rush and overwhelming feeling of his senses coming back. And as all these sounds and all these bright lights are flashing in front of him, he hears the heart rate monitor flatline. The way you can see the realization on his face, and the doctor comes out, and Babe is like, please tell me that my boyfriend is okay. And Babe washes past him, and he's just bawling, crying over Charlie. And man, Babe says this line where he's like, I'm so sorry for being mean to you. I love you so much. They have a whole funeral and everything. I know you're just like, okay, so you're bringing this up, right? You're bringing this up. What's the problem? My problem is, a few episodes later, we find out that Charlie actually didn't die, obviously. He didn't die, because like I said, I brought up the fact that it was a faked death, right? Charlie is in fact alive, and like I said, the plan was for them to make it so Babe believed that Charlie was dead so he can get his senses back, right? Leading up to like the final face-off with Tony and them unveiling what his actual plans are, Babe actually runs into Charlie. And the reaction that Babe had was very, very fucking weird to me, because, and I saw some people saying, oh, well, at that point in time, he really was just happy to see Babe. I mean, really just happy to see Charlie. I get that, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, y'all had an entire funeral. There was a casket. There was a tombstone with his fucking name on it. You heard the heart rate monitor flatline, right? You grieved over this man. And then as you're getting your ass whooped, out comes Super Save-A-Ho, and he's right there in front of you. And all we get from that is Babe saying, oh my gosh, Charlie, you're alive. What? I don't know, it was just really fucking weird to me. And then even just the progression of after the actual funeral, the funeral, quote unquote, of Charlie being dead, we get smut. I don't fucking understand, but okay. not, I don't know, I just felt like it was really, really fucking weird. There is a side couple that I really loved, which was Alan and Jeff. I think that they had such a cute dynamic. I think they were so adorable. Just, I don't know, they're just really cute, right? Not much for me to really say other than I just really enjoyed them as a couple. Now, there were a few ghost ships, which, my fucking God, I really cannot stand when there's ghost ships in a show. And those ghost ships were North Sonic, Winter Kim, Pete Kenta, and Pete Way. And I guess you can include Babe Way too, but yeah, I just don't like when they imply that there's chemistry between these characters and they do literally fucking nothing with it. It's annoying. That's like the main thing that I really want to talk about with the story, but let's talk about some of my favorite scenes. I really enjoyed that scene with Babe and Charlie where they're calling each other mama and papa. I know everybody was like kind of like, oh, this shit's kind of cringy. I think it's adorable, personally. I also really love the scenes where you can see Babe getting more and more, like opening up to Charlie and being more lovey-dovey with him. Where there's a scene where I think it's after like they were doing like this like mission or something, and Babe got hurt, and just the way that like Babe like looks up at Charlie is so fucking cute. Literally every single scene with Alan and Jeff. And honestly, as much as I despised Way as a character, I really loved seeing the backstory of him. And did I say Babe? I meant to say Way. Of Way as a character. I really enjoyed seeing the backstory of him and Babe, because it's such an interesting idea of, here's a guy, he's in love with his best friend. Here's a guy, he's not in love with his best friend. Now, there is actually this one part about Way that I'm not including, or that I haven't included yet, is that in the final episode, right? This is like near the climax, all the bullshit is happening, everything's unfolding. There's like this shootout that ends up happening between, you know, the X-Hunter crew, which is the crew that Babe is under, and Tony. Babe ends up running out of bullets, and as Tony is coming over and he's about to shoot Babe, Way actually gets in the way and he gets shot in the back twice. Now, after like, you know, a bit of scuffling, after Tony ends up getting clapped, Babe turns over to Way, and Way just starts gushing his heart out to him. He's just like, I have always loved you. There's never been a moment of time that I never loved you. And he asked Babe, what about you? Have you ever loved me? And you know what the fuck this bitch Babe says? He says, you're like the best friend of my life. Nothing will ever change that. And Way just fucking dies. And I don't know why, but there was something so comedic about that, because even after death, even on his deathbed, this motherfucker Way is still being friend-zoned. That is insane to me. But anyway, this video is getting really fucking long, but I really enjoyed Pitbabe. It wasn't too complicated of a story. I honestly really enjoyed it. If anything, I am more than willing to watch it again. If you like, well, I'd say you have to like Omegaverse. You have to like racing BLs. You have to like, where it seems like the more dominant guy is going to be the bottom. I mean, it's going to be the top, but it's not. It's actually the inverse. That's actually a fun fact about this. Pooh is basically the top here in the show, but Powell is more like the power bottom. But anyway, so if you're into things like that, then I would say definitely give this show, give it a gander, give it a look. yeah, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'll see you next time with another review. Peace and love.